Hi, everyone. I'm Parag, founder and CEO of Webgility, and your host for today. This video is being recorded as part of our series called Beat It. We're talking to business owners in retail on the impact that the coronavirus has had on their business. We'll get a firsthand look at the actions they're taking and get real advice that can help you beat this crisis. If you have any questions you'd like to ask future guests, we're going to post a bunch of social media links and details on our site. But without much further ado, I'd like to introduce today our guest, who's Dan Wells, runs a omni-channel business and has been around for 23 plus years. But I'll let Dan introduce himself and tell us a little bit about, Dan, your business, and just dive right in and of course, tell us how you're doing.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having us. My name is Dan Wells, CEO of Bases Loaded. As you said, we're an omni-channel retailer, been in business 23 years as of April 1st, which looks like we're going to make it. So we're really excited for that. We true omni-channel retailer. So we operate a 30,000 square foot retail store, open 7 days a week, 361 days a year. Also sell on marketplaces, 7 different marketplaces, as well as e-commerce sites. We do all of our own fulfillment. And basically have a promise that we make to our customers. If they order same day by 3 p.m., we guarantee them that we will always ship that out. And we have never missed that promise, including during these difficult times that we've had over the last few weeks. Challenges we're having today is, go ahead.
Lot of retail space there, Dan, and I believe you've got a location out in Rancho Cordova. Has that been on lockdown?
Yeah, so we got a notification from state of California about 2 weeks ago to start to streamline some hours, do some things like that, and then we got the official notification last Thursday that we had to be closed Thursday at midnight. So at that point, our retail location closed, and we are now doing minimum staff that's required by law. That is basically still fulfilling all of our online orders as well as marketplace. So online and marketplace, we're still open for business. Volume's down pretty drastically compared to what it normally is this time of the year, down by last calculation, almost 80%.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're still shipping out, we're averaging 250 to 300 orders a day. But this time of year, we'd normally be at somewhere around 2,000. So we're non-essential items, even though we think we're essential items. Baseball and softball fans across the country, that play the sport and coach the sport are, still buying. And so we're still here doing fulfillment with kind of a skeleton staff.
Well, I can tell right off the bat that even with an 80% decline in business, you seem to be in great spirits. So you got to tell us what's the recipe for that enthusiasm. There's definitely a lot to be negative about, but it sounds like you're holding up quite well.
Yeah. The last 2.5 weeks have been really tough. So I think I'm done with all my anger and tears and crying and everything else. And I've really kind of put forth a strategy in our company here the last 2 days that we're finished with everything we can do in terms of kind of doomsday prepping, and we've got plenty of toilet paper and plenty of paper towels. And now we're just really focused on the things that we can control. So we're focused on kind of the future. So we did have to do a pretty significant layoff on last Monday as well as last Thursday, which were 2 of the more difficult days I've ever had in my professional career. We have very, very long-time employees. Some of our newest employees have been with us 2 years, and our longtime employees have been with us 10 plus years. So that was very, very difficult. The skeleton staff we're running with is about 6 people. They're kind of my key people. It will allow us to be focused on really what I talked about, the future. So we're trying to build out what are those next projects, what are those next processes, what are those next tactics that we want to try to get into that can make a difference for us in the future. So we're double down on some marketing strategies that we've always wanted to work on and never had an ability to work on it because we have been a very fast growing company over the last 10 years. And sometimes when you're growing fast, which I know you're familiar with, you don't always get to work on everything you want to work on. And sometimes you're in the business as opposed to being, working on the business. So this is kind of an opportunity we've never really had to sit back and say, okay, what do we really want to do? So we're launching a couple of new sites over the next month and a half to 2 months. We're launching 2 new marketing initiatives we've been wanting to do for a year and a half. And so it's really what I have my people focused on. So so I do have a little bit of pep in my step because I know there's going to be a tomorrow, even though today looks pretty bad. That's kind of the direction we're trying to head in, and that's where all my people are at too.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you're kind of in many ways ahead of the game and already kind of thinking about the future. I'm sure as the lockdowns kind of start to get into place in many cities and states across this country, and we see obviously the health impact that's happening across the community. Small businesses are going to be really heavily impacted by this, and I'm really glad to hear that you're starting to look ahead. For those that maybe haven't gotten that far ahead in the curve, and I certainly don't want you to relive those last couple of weeks, but any insights, Dan, that you can share in terms of how you went about kind of thinking about the business? How did you think about sort of prioritizing what matters, and what in your mind might seem like, I guess, a playbook for how one should really sort of adapt or react to what is really kind of unprecedented times. Has been, I don't think any time in history that anybody would have sort of seen this coming, and it's certainly news for everybody. So anything you can share would, I think, be really helpful for our viewers.
Sure. I think from our standpoint, we tried to tackle this really early on the first day as a traditional kind of disaster recovery. So we actually did have a document about how we would handle that, but our assumption is that there would be 2 feet of water in our building, or our building would have burnt down and we'd be working on backup tape. I mean, this was a different type of disaster that I don't think any of us were ever prepared for in a million years. So I think what we did is we tried to look at the business holistically and say, if this goes on much longer than what anybody plans, what do we need to do to make sure that we're here 60 days from now, 90 days from now, or even 180 days from now, if this goes on much longer than anybody anticipates, so that we can open our doors in the future and be an employer of choice in the future and a place for our customers. So what we really did is we started reaching out very, very early on, almost 2.5 weeks ago, reaching out to our vendors, our partners, our manufacturers, our bankers, pretty much anybody that was in our entire kind of financial ecosystem, and explaining to them that we've been partners for 23 years. We're going to get through this together, and here's what we need to do to make sure we're there tomorrow, and here's what we need from you, and here's what we're willing to provide to you to do those type of things. And I was very surprised, because I could have swore that I would have been in line, but instead everybody was answering the phone, and they were literally all saying I was like one of the first ones. So I was a little surprised by that, but it also kind of made me feel good, except for the part where half of them, I'm not sure, were taking it as serious as they would take it if we were having that first call today. They didn't quite anticipate it. We've re-had some of those conversations again, and the outcome's been a little bit different, but we basically told all of our vendors and our manufacturers that we buy direct from and said, look, I personally guarantee we're going to take care of you, and we're going to make sure that we always pay just like we always do today. We entered this 3 weeks ago debt-free with 0 debt, and that's not where we are today, and I'll explain that in a minute. But we basically told them we're going to make sure we pay you. We just can't pay you in the agreed upon terms, because we want to make sure that we're here for you as a customer in the future. And most companies really understood that, and they've really partnered with us to try to extend some terms and things that were going to be coming due. And we're really now starting to see that trickle through the environment. I've had some of my bankers have reached out and said, we want to delay some different things for you and stuff like that. And, certain ones were saying that sounds good. Other ones, we're not. But one of the other things we did do is we kind of took out of the playbook of the big boys. So if you look at what everybody that's all the billion-dollar companies are doing is they're drawing down all their credit facilities that are available to them.
Yeah.
That is something we learned in 2008 when in 1 week we got 3 letters from our banks that all had zero balances on lines of credits, and they all said, oh, we're going to take your line down to 0 even though you don't have anything on it. And then when you actually needed it, it wasn't there. So we've extended ourselves on some lines of credit that basically have been sitting at 0 and that we haven't used, but we felt that it was a cheap insurance policy per se, that if we do come out of this quicker than we think in 2-3 weeks or 4 weeks, we paid basically some interest we didn't need to pay, and we pay those lines back and we're done. So we felt that was really important, and it's given us a nice large cushion to weather this storm regardless of how long it is. So whether this thing lasts, well into the summer or even beyond, we're going to be okay, and we're going to be here, and we're going to make sure that we're open for business the day they allow us to open back up for business. So that would be something I would strongly recommend, is if you do have access to capital, I would access that capital immediately and understand that what you're doing is you're really just kind of buying an insurance policy.
Right. And in terms of the tactical plan, once you started to look at the financial health, you started looking at your balance sheet and also the different expense line items you had. Was there some approach that you could share about how you decided here are the things that are most crucial to me, the things, sort of the, cutting out, unfortunately, really to, maybe cut muscle, but really try not to hit the bone, right? How did you go about thinking about that?
That's a really good question. I think what we looked at is we had in our mind what we thought would be kind of a minimum time that this might last. And pretty early on, we saw that this was going to be something that we thought would be 6 to 8 weeks at a minimum, which is a little bit longer than what we're kind of hearing in the marketplace. So that if this thing does last for 2 months, what do we need to do to strip out those costs that we really can't afford to have for 2 months? And what I realized pretty quickly that unfortunately, a pretty sizable portion of our staff I just wasn't going to have work for within a week or two. So we extended some vacations, extended some sick time, put some money in a bucket for some people, and had to make some really tough decisions. But the idea was that it was, we were just going to be back. And when we're back, they're the first phone calls we're going to make. So our goal was to just say, see you later, not goodbye. And we made sure everybody knew that. But again, very difficult for us, just like it is for anybody. I've had over a dozen conversations the last week and a half with CEOs that I know across the country in all different industries. So beyond just sporting goods. So a couple in manufacturing, a couple in technology, software company, consulting services, a food manufacturer, and every single one except for the food manufacturer has had to have a layoff of at least 50% of their staffing. So you can really see that the impact this is having on our economy almost overnight is dramatic and just really pales beyond, I think, what people are even today starting to comprehend. And I think we'll get probably even that very first look at it tomorrow when the unemployment number comes out. And I think I think that unemployment number is going to be in excess of 5 or 6 million. I think it's going to just really blow everybody's expectations away.
Yeah, that's the word on the street. And I'm afraid, we're also sort of seeing a pretty fascinating domino effect. And it's almost like parts of the country don't know what's happening in the rest of the country. And you and I are both here in California. So, I'm here in San Mateo, and we've been on lockdown for about a week now. We started exercising precaution, almost 2 weeks ago. And there are many parts of the country that are still not on lockdown. And I'm afraid, as I've told my team, it's only going to get a little worse before it starts to get better.
Right.
Given that, you have a retail location and, you're stocking, I believe last time we chatted, you said you had over 18,000 or so products and so much in inventory. Talk to me about how you're dealing with that. I mean, you're not physically there, or are you still going in? Are you able to, ship out of your retail location? How do you sort of handle that?
Great question. Yeah, we do stock almost 19,000 SKUs today, and we do all of our own fulfillment out of our warehouse for the entire U.S. So no FBA business with Amazon, which is good and bad. Obviously, the good is, we're going to control what's happening in the marketplace, which is great. I think the challenge that that some people will have if they were over reliant on either a third party fulfillment company, or if they were over reliant on Amazon FBA, as everybody's heard probably in the news by now, they will start to run into some issues, and then at that point you don't control your environment. At least we can still ship today. Kind of within the confines of the law, we're allowed to do, very minimal people. So I've got, people basically sitting in 4 offices and all separated from each other, and 2 shippers on either side of the fulfillment center. So we're, practicing social distancing within our operation. And, normally this time of year, I'd have average about 25 to 30 employees on site at any point in time. So it's a pretty dramatic difference. We would also be shipping this time of year 7 days a week. So our operation would flow every single day. And obviously right now we're just shipping Monday through Friday because the volume's not there, and anything else. So the other thing we did do is about 2 weeks ago, we stopped purchasing. So that obviously has that trickle back effect up into the supply chain, where our manufacturers across the US, are now not getting any orders, which means, they're not doing fulfillment in their warehouses, which means their employees are going to feel the effect of that. And it just, goes all the way back. So, I think the supply chain today is so tightly woven that, when a consumer doesn't buy something, a small item in the US, that trickle effect and what that does, and, wheels itself all the way back, whether that's to China or a US plant or something else. And, just has a dramatic effect on everyone.
Yeah, and it's fascinating you bring up China. Did you have any reliance on sort of manufacturers or suppliers from outside the U.S., or everything is from within the U.S. for you?
Everything is from within the U.S. for the most part. So all of our manufacturers that we buy from are primarily U.S. companies. So they are companies like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, Wilson, Easton, companies like that. So they all have manufactured overseas, but they are the entity in the U.S. and warehouse in the U.S. So we've obviously been dealing with tariffs the last 12 to 18 months, which has had a significant impact, I think, on everybody's business, including ours. We've had some products that have had tariffs as high as 37.5%, which has a dramatic impact on, how do you price that to consumers, and try to work with your manufacturers to build that in. And so that's been very complex to begin with. And then you put that on top of this, and we were having a banner year again. This was our 10th year in a row of plus 25 to 30% growth year over year. Before this,
I know you've been on a phenomenal run, Dan, and you were featured in the Inc. 5000 for what, 3 years in a row?
5 years in a row.
Wow.
5 years in a row. So we're really very proud of that accomplishment. And this year, before this all started, I think it was on March 8th, I think we were up 24% over last year. So we were, just really having a great year. And this is really our peak time, which is unfortunate. But, at this point, you kind of have to look that I know it sounds crazy to say, you being a CEO of a company and a founder, me being a CEO, but there are more important things in life than business and money. So we're trying to have a little more humble approach in terms of, what the bigger outcome of this is. And this is more about, people and the impact this is having on people's lives. So what we're trying to do is, whatever we can to keep people employed and keep people on health insurance, and, try to take care of family and do the right thing. And so we're starting to have a little more focus on that now than anything else.
Yeah, we do certainly need to start looking forward as well. Certainly a lot of lessons to be learned and ways that we can tackle, difficult times in our business. Speaking about looking ahead, you mentioned there were some new sites you were starting, you had some marketing ideas. Tell me a little bit about those, and I guess what is it about now? Is it just that you have some time available, or is it kind of trying to find ways to use your creative staff? What are some of those ideas, and what are the motivations behind them?
Sure. I'll be really honest. It's capacity. We actually have now capacity to be focused on, working on top of the business and focusing on those things that we've had on that list of would love to do if we had extra time. And so those are what we're doing right now. We relaunched our main website October 1st on our new platforms. We did a re-platform, which was difficult after 15 years. It's been very, very successful for us. Our conversion rate's up about almost 45% from October 1 through March 1. So all that hard work and everything we did really paid huge dividends for us. And so now one of the reasons we did do a re-platform is we had a goal of launching some additional e-commerce sites that were, I won't call them vanity sites, but they were just really, really narrowly focused niches that we're kind of on the periphery of now. So we really see it as a really good time for us to kind of double down on some of these strategies that have worked for us the last few years, make some incremental investments, because we do have to be cautious about spending too many dollars, but some development dollars and things like that, and be ready to go in a month and a half or 2 months and kind of launch some new pieces. So it's not really trying to recreate our business per se, but it's just really having the time, which is probably one of the best pieces of capital that a company can have, right? Is time to work on the business and things, which sometimes you just can't do. So my people are very motivated right now, and we're just focused on the things we can control. And that's kind of our mantra that we've been working on the last 2 weeks. There's only so many things we can control. We can't sit around and cry about it. It's not going to make it better. And
right.
We're focused on tomorrow.
Yeah, I can share a little bit of insight on our business. The way that I describe to our team is we have to think about defense and offense. And our defensive game is really first and foremost about protecting our team, protecting our company and our revenue. And then we've also, once the defenses are in line, we need to start thinking about offense. And one of the strategies you just mentioned is, new websites, really a way of expanding your target market, right? How do you get more reach for your products? Finding those interesting pockets of your catalog or certain types of customer categories where you can expand with a new domain, have a more focused approach to that catalog. So that's really great. Has there been, you mentioned a re-platform, so I'm certainly going to ask the question, where were you? What did you switch to?
Sure. We were a long time customer on Yahoo Stores platform, which was really
yes, I recall.
Which is really the beginning of the internet. You'd have to go back to. Yahoo bought a small company in 1998 that had a web platform building tool, and at one point, I want to say there was 200 of the internet 500 largest companies were running on Yahoo's platform. Believe it or not.
That's right.
Unfortunately, Yahoo just lost focus over the years and just didn't invest in the platform the way they should have. And it was really there was a core group of people that were still running on Yahoo, but over time, it just continuing to invest money in a platform that we didn't see investing at the same levels as we were just didn't make sense. So we went out on a search, looked at everybody, and really settled on BigCommerce Enterprise. What a great move for us. Just been really, really great. We accelerated our project. We built a 90-day timeline to go live and do a full platform migration. Signed contracts July 1st and went live October 7th. So we officially missed our target by 6 days, but that was a pretty aggressive target. So based on what we have with 18,000 SKUs, custom configurators on our site, all kinds of different stuff. So We really hit that hard. Everybody worked really hard in our organization as well as our external developers. And we're really proud of what we accomplished in the numbers and the revenue increase and the conversion increase and the page views increases and everything that we measure our business on. It was very successful for us. So now we've got a platform that allows us to really do those next level kind of things that we weren't able to do before.
Yeah, and I know you had a lot of customizations and very complex sort of workflows, and it's sort of that taking that initial step of how do I unplug all of this, and is it even possible to recreate?
I think it's interesting though, and it's not a plug for you guys, but of course it is a plug for you guys because I'm a big fan of what you do and the support we get. But everything we looked at, we wanted to make sure that Webgility was at the heart of that decision, because you guys are the middleware that keeps everything glued together, whether it's our ERP systems, the marketplaces, our website, shipping, just everything. And we knew that whatever it was had to really fit with what you do. And so if you remember me reaching out to you in the spring of last year going, here's where we're leaning, what do you think?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. So that was an easy, a much easier decision for us, because there's other middleware tools we've looked at over the years. We've been a customer with you guys for 7 or 8 years now.
Nine and counting.
Oh my gosh, 9 years. Wow. Nothing compares to what you guys do. So it still is.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're a really strategic part of what we do and our success. So you're saying 9 years. So we've had 9 years in a row of growth over 25%. So I wonder if there's a common thread there, perhaps.
Yes, I hope. You're very kind as always. I know it's a tough time, and this video is by no means meant to be plug for Webgility, but we really appreciate it. I just want to take a few more minutes, and I know you've got a lot going on there and a lot of things you need to tackle. Just a few things. One, we just heard the stimulus plan, the big bill that's going to be approved here anytime now. There's a number of SBA sort of loan grants for small businesses. Have you looked at that? Any thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to be helpful for you or other retailers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Talking about the capital that we talked about before, and my advice to other business owners that they have access to advance that. When the president came out, I think it was 2 Thursdays ago, and they announced the very first $50 billion SBA disaster backing loan. I immediately went to the SBA site. I opened an SBA account, which is very easy to do. And I went to go apply for an SBA disaster loan because I just wanted to have everything in my arsenal that I possibly could. Unfortunately, I think I was a little quicker than the president and the staff was, because you could open an SBA account, but there was no disaster in California, New York, or anywhere else in the United States for it. So I checked it on Saturday, I checked it on Sunday. Sure enough, Monday morning, the US was a disaster. So at that point, you could then show that it was an economic disaster. I personally spent about 6.5 hours because the website keeps crashing. And they asked for massive financial documentation, like if you were applying just for a traditional loan. So 3 years worth of tax returns, P&L, balance sheets, AP, AR, pretty much everything you can imagine. So I finished that Monday and submitted it. I did see that they pulled credit, so I know something's happening. But like even today, I just went to go check just to see, and the website's down for maintenance. So I could only imagine the number of applications they're receiving, but the SBA has a very good reputation of staffing and beefing very, very quickly. So during the hurricanes, they were able to add like 4,000 loan processors within like a 2-week period. So my guess would be somebody would probably be reaching out to me in the next week or so, to ask, what are you looking for? How much? Here's what we think you're approved for, and kind of there. But our goal, again, is the same thing. I probably won't need it, and I'm probably not going to need a penny of the lines of credits that we advance, but having that gives us the ability, I think, in the future to pivot quicker. And when this recovery does come around, whenever that is, whether that's in 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, I'm going to make sure we're super positioned for that so I can bring back every one of those people and hopefully add even more people, to our staff and our company. So.
Nice. Yeah. And then lastly, in terms of, you mentioned multiple channels, you've got so many different sites. Are there certain channels, and you're obviously in the sporting goods category, which fascinating, kind of considered, I guess, non-essential, but you're still seeing some volume. Are there certain channels that are working better for you than others? And is there any advice you would give for folks out there that maybe right now are just sitting on a brick and mortar business that don't have online presence? How would you sort of, what advice would you give them to kind of get started, and where should they proceed first to?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd say is if you're a brick and mortar business and don't have an online presence, you have to get an online presence. It's just part of who you should be in this day and age, regardless of what you're selling, whether it's products or services or anything. So that'd be the first recommendation. The second recommendation I would make, even though we were narrowly focused in baseball and softball, we always felt like we were somewhat diversified. And what I mean by that is our sales channels are diversified. So even though I'm selling the same group of 18,000 products, I wasn't dependent on hoping that person walked through my front door, or that person bought on my website, or that person went to my eBay store, or that person bought something from me on Amazon, because my sales channels were all over the board. So when somebody changed the rules on one of those, the other sales were kind of still coming in. So when eBay changed their fee structure, or Amazon did this, or retail was this way because a local league doesn't allow this type of bat, it was going to be okay. And so I kind of learned that. Obviously, I needed to be even more diversified. Now I know out of sporting goods, I needed to be in the toilet paper business. Then I would have been fully protected. But I didn't have that hindsight. But that's really what I would recommend to any type of retailer, whether you're only an online retailer, or you're just a brick and mortar, or you're more like us that's kind of in between, is I would look into the future and say, how can I be even more diversified in my sales channels? Because it's really easy sometimes, I think, as a small company, that when you have sales coming in from one area, you get so excited and you become so dependent on that. And the risk that you can do to your business by being so dependent on one sales channel can be just as bad as having one really, really large customer that buys. So my recommendation to folks is always to try to figure out how can you diversify your sales channels. So I think that's helping us a little bit today. I mean, it's, not where we want to be, but I have revenue coming into the company, which is outstanding, even though we're closed. So I don't think I could ask to be any more lucky than that.
And an 80% hit is not something that almost any business could handle, but it seems, you've done incredibly well to try and react, and you're way ahead of the curve. And hopefully through this video, some other folks out there that are thinking about what's to come or are facing a crisis, they can really take some advantage of all of your learnings. So again, Dan Wells from Basis Loaded. I won't share your personal information, but certainly if folks want to reach out, we'll put a link up to your website if they have any questions. Anything else you'd like to share, Dan?
No, just keep your head up and keep moving forward. And I hope you and everybody at your company's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really wish you all the best.
You too. Great. Good talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.